Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patrick Smith. I'm a sales manager here at Foundation Software, and I'm going to go ahead and host the webinar for today. This is part of our Foundation Free webcast series. So today, the webinar is geared towards CPAs, and we are going to give a little presentation on really the fit for Foundation for anybody out there that has construction clients that are looking for a potential change with software. And this is just going to determine or give you an idea of what Foundation fits and the type of contractor that we typically work with. So all you folks are in listen-only mode. You're hearing me. I will not hear you. So there is a little chat, little question section over in the GoToWebinar control panel. If there are any questions as we're going through the presentation, we can sort of address those as needed. So again, geared more toward the CPAs of the world. This will give you the CPA credit. So there's going to be a few polling questions throughout the presentation, and those you can just fire your answers in. I'll give you a heads up when those are coming up, and it's really there just to make sure everybody's active, make sure everybody's paying attention, and that'll earn you that credit. So what I'm going to do here to start with is pull up a little PowerPoint presentation and go over a few slides just with general information. And then we're going to get into the system itself and take you through just some of the functionality, go through some reports and some data entry, just to give you all a feel for Foundation. So if anybody does have experience with Foundation, if you've seen it before, this will be a bit of a refresher for anybody that has not seen the program before. Of course, this will be new to you, and it's going to be pretty high level. We're going to keep this, kind of that 30,000-foot view. Again, just to give you an idea of who we cater to and the type of contractor that we typically work with. So with that in mind, I'm pulling up a little PowerPoint here, kind of zip through this. So again, my name is Patrick Smith. I've been here at Foundation for about 21 years, and yeah, like I mentioned, I'm a sales manager, started on the support side of things, and I moved over to sales about 15 years ago. So moving to the next slide here, as far as what we have to offer, a couple different things. So we've got the Foundation Software full accounting program. So that is really the backbone of our company. That is the accounting system, job costing, project management, mobile applications as well for timekeeping. So you can see here, we're specialty accounting. We only work in the construction industry. 1985 is when we started as a company. Now, we started with an old DOS-based program way back when, ended up scrapping that program. We rewrote a Windows program from the ground up. So all of our development is in-house. We're about 6,500 clients nationwide. Again, that's only construction. And really the type of companies that we work with, of course, it varies. Most of our clients are specialty subs. We've got a lot of GC clients that are out there as well. But we like construction complexities here, particularly on the payroll side of things, prevailing wage, union, multi-state payroll. That is really what our payroll is geared toward, very attractive part of our program. Now, on the right side of this slide, you'll see information on Payroll for Construction. So Payroll for Construction is our sister company that works as a payroll service. And we've got a lot of Foundation users that'll utilize our payroll service to process checks and direct deposits and pay taxes and do quarterlies and W-2s as well. So with Payroll for Construction, that could be for mutual Foundation clients. So we use Foundation and Payroll for Construction in conjunction with each other. We also have clients that use the payroll service without using Foundation. So a lot of QuickBooks users out there, for example, that are maybe on the smaller end of things, that don't care to switch accounting, or maybe aren't ready to switch accounting software but still need help with payroll. Those are definitely options and avenues that those type of companies can go. And then we've got, with the payroll service, there might be clients that have, maybe an ERP system that they're happy with, they don't want to get away from, but they do want to use the construction payroll and have that automated as well. So really with the payroll service, could be Foundation clients, could be the smaller QuickBooks users, could be large companies that have an ERP that they don't want to deviate from. But you can see here, we pretty much cater to anybody on the payroll side of things that's doing construction and needing help with those complex payrolls. So for Foundation, who are the typical clients? We really do cater to small to mid-sized contractors, and like I mentioned, the payroll complexities happens to be one of the things that we specialize in. With that in mind, a lot of the specialty trades that are out there, so your electricals, civil, heavy construction, mechanicals, roofers, any specialty trade that needs help with job costing in particular, that's who we're typically working with. And the breakdown of our clients, you can see here about 80% trade and about 20% GC. So that's sort of the breakdown. But bottom line here is if you're a construction company that needs help with job cost accounting, we can step in and provide these services. So the size of the companies, it varies. We've got smaller companies that are doing 2-3 million. We've got larger companies. You can see here, largest contractor company that we work with did about 400 million last year. So the bulk of our clients in that 5 to 30 million range, who we market to heavily, 3 to 75. That's really who we're chasing for the most part. So moving down to company information, I mentioned earlier, founded in 1985. About 375 employees, give or take. These days, we're actually probably pushing about 400. Hired a new batch of support reps to come on board. Just hired a few marketing folks as well. So we're probably closer to 400 at this point. And the clients, about 6,500 for Foundation, about 1,500 for Payroll for Construction. And one very attractive part of how we work as a company, everything is done direct. So we develop our software, we sell to our clients, we train, we support, never a third party involved. We're not a contracted dealer reseller type company. We don't contract our support out to different call centers or anything along those lines. We are all direct employees of Foundation, all working under the same roof. Now, as far as development is concerned, our accounting program, obviously the backbone of this whole process here, always enhancements and things to add to the program, just like any other software. But really from a development standpoint, we are getting heavy into mobile for timekeeping, for field log reporting. We've had a mobile app out for a number of years now and always adding new features to the mobile environment. And on the project management side of things, we have a new product that we released this year called ProjectHQ, and that is an online project management software system that integrates with Foundation to manage RFIs and manage submittals and daily logs and things of that nature. So that's really where we're putting a lot of emphasis, a lot of focus is onto the mobile side for timekeeping and for project management to allow these folks out in the field to access data, enter data without having to be in the office or logged into the accounting program. So with that in mind, I'm going to pop over to the accounting system, and we're going to go through a bit of a crash course on some of the functionality, some of the reporting capabilities, starting with an overview of the menu. So up on this top section here, this is the menu that a user would see when they log into Foundation. So we've got the base modules up on top, payables, receivables, the AIA schedule of value billing built directly into accounts receivable. Those SOV billings can be generated straight out of the program, printed onto blank paper, or sent electronically via PDF. Ledger, of course, for financials, could be standard GL, could be divisionalized general ledger with different divisions or even subdivisions. So the financial reporting, the bank reconciliation, that is built into the GL. Job costing, that's where everything ultimately lands. So the job costing in our system, this is real-time live reporting, any accounting transactions feed directly into the respective job reports, and no spreadsheets, no manual reporting. And really that's where the majority of our new clients are sort of dealing with is using QuickBooks, which is, if I had to guess, probably 80-85% of our new clients come off of QuickBooks or equivalent generic software, needing help with job costing, needing to eliminate spreadsheets and eliminate double entry. So it's just sort of a gradual move into our system or logical move, outgrowing QuickBooks, losing control of these jobs, and that's where we'd step in to automate those reports. Now, payroll, I'd mentioned Payroll for Construction as the payroll service. This system is fully capable of running an entire payroll. So time cards can be entered or fed in via the mobile app. You can print checks out of the system, process direct deposits, quarterlies, W-2s. So that is a full payroll start to finish down to those year-end W-2s. And that's for those that want to do payroll in-house. Otherwise, our payroll service would definitely be an option. Now, below that is the purchase order subcontract module. So purchase orders for any type of material orders can be issued through here. Subcontract agreements as well can be issued through the system. Those documents are customizable. They're embedded within the system and would generate straight out of the program. The PO subcontract module, that's all about cost commitments, committing the cost of the job to see what those outstanding balances are. Lastly is our audit review. So this is a module we designed for that process. It's a series of reports that makes it a little bit easier to go through the audit, the review process. So friendly in that regard, where you pop in here, you get the reports you need, and then you're done. So it just makes it a little bit easier to find that data. Now these additional modules, these 6 in the middle, users can pick and choose based on the type of work they do and the functionality that you need. For example, equipment is used for heavy construction, excavators, backhoes, dozers, things of that nature, allowing the user to cost the equipment out to the job it's being used on, and track service and maintenance schedules like oil changes, tire rotations. So this module can be used for tracking heavy equipment items and tracking company vehicles, trucks, vans, things of that nature for maintenance purposes. And then below that is the fixed asset module. This is used for depreciation. So users can set up depreciation schedules. Now the equipment and fixed assets modules talk to one another. So if an equipment item is set up here in equipment, it'll show up in fixed assets. Then the user is able to apply the depreciation schedule. Inventory, pretty self-explanatory. So this is perpetual inventory, items in, items out. Service dispatch, that's for your MEPs, your mechanical, electrical, plumbers, roofers as well, for those that have a service division that need work order management and dispatch capabilities to service technicians. Now, with our mobile app in mind, we've got what we call the field log mobile, which is applicable to the construction side, and then we've got the service mobile as well, which ties in with the dispatch module to electronically manage those work orders on phones or tablets, capture a signature on the part of the customer, for example. So this is, again, there for those that are heavy into the service side of things. And then we've got a couple specialty billing modules to the right here. Time and material for any jobs that are billed, hourly labor, material markups. This allows users to predefine those rates per customer. And then we've got a unit price billing module, which is pretty widely used in heavy construction, those that are billing progressively by the quantity, cubic yard, linear foot, and so on. Now, project control. These modules are more on the operation side of things. So project management, that is tracking submittals, tracking RFIs. Now, this is call it our older project management module. Eventually, this module will probably be phased out. I mean, we'll always leave it active, but going to really stop selling it at some point here in the near future. Considering we've got ProjectHQ, which is the online project management system that eventually would act as a replacement for this module. Scheduling, that's there to create a Gantt chart, schedule the timeline of the job. And we do have document imaging as well. That's used as an electronic filing cabinet for anybody that's looking to store documents. Excuse me. All right, so then we've got the executive dashboard. I'm going to start with the dashboard, and this will give you all a pretty general idea of what we can do in the way of job cost reporting. So think of this as a bucket that's gathering data, and this type of functionality are really what all the QuickBooks users of the world are looking for, again, to eliminate the spreadsheets and automate the reporting. So the gist or the concept behind this is start on a very summarized level, how we doing overall as a company, then drill down. So in this example, at least, you can see I've got about 9 million in active jobs on the left side here. It totals all my jobs. I've estimated or budgeted about 7.5 from a cost standpoint. By way of those numbers, here's my estimated gross profit. Then we're able to see real world. Here's what you've billed against those jobs. Here's what they've truly cost you. And then here's your actual gross profit. So we've got totals on the left. We've got each job individually here on the right. Now, if the user wants to see these jobs laid out in a report format, click this button that says View Report, and that drills down into a little WIP schedule. So the WIP, the over-under billing, the bonding reports, very much automated here. There's a couple different versions of the WIP throughout the system. This is the one that's just built into our executive dashboard. So kind of a couple different ways to get to the same numbers. But in any event, that WIP schedule automatically generated without the user having to get in here and put anything in manually. Now from the WIP, any job that a user wants to dig into, they click that job, and it drills down into a summary of that specific job, showing the contract amount, what's been billed against it, estimated costs, actual cost, gross margin, original contract plus change orders. You're able to see percent complete. Are you overbilled or underbilled? Commitments down here toward the bottom as well. So when those purchase orders and or subcontract agreements are issued through the system, it would show the commitment against that job. Any change orders that are entered against those agreements, it will revise that commitment, tell you what the subs or suppliers have billed you, what's remaining on those agreements, what you've paid out in terms of cash. So again, these numbers, you get the idea. These are all for that Midwest Turnpike job that we clicked into initially. Now from here, anything that's blue, that means you can keep drilling down. As an example, this estimated cost here, $449, actual cost, $197. If I click the link that says job cost detail, that shows a breakdown of various cost codes that account for that $449 estimated and that $197 actual cost. Now these are my examples. I just have a number of different sample codes within my system. These we would cater to whatever type of work our clients do. We help them build these codes, or if they already have a list of codes, of course, they can use their existing list. So a lot of our clients do use codes, and then within the code, break it down further into what we call the cost class. So this would be your labor, your material, so on and so on. Now we do have an optional phase, or an optional level above the cost code that we call the phase. So some clients only use cost classes and they keep it simple. Others use codes and classes to see how these different classes break down into each one of the codes. And then those that need another extra level of job costing would use the phase. So you'd have the phase, then all the codes within that phase, and then the cost classes or the different types of costs within each one of those codes. So again, client by client, we just kind of address that during the implementation, figure out what makes most sense, help the client set it up accordingly, up to 3 levels, again, including that phase. Now, ultimately, from a data accessibility standpoint, users can drill into any of these classes to see the detail. So this 4,200 in labor, for example, if I click labor, that shows every transaction that fed in from payroll that accounts for labor, in my example, within that code, within that job that we clicked into initially. So going from that summarized level down into the transaction detail, whether it's labor, like we're seeing here, or if I click into material, subcontract, I'll click to my subcontract expense here. Now you see in this example, I've got one invoice that came in from accounts payable that accounts for that 5,000 subcontract expense. If I click the transaction number, it shows the detail of that respective payable. And then with our document imaging in mind, if a user were to click this paperclip icon, now they're able to drill down into the scanned image of that material invoice, subcontract invoice, whatever type of transaction it happens to be. So this is very much the backbone of our program, whether it's standard job cost reports or the dashboard like we're seeing here, all of these numbers are feeding directly in. And with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and launch the first polling question. Okay. And the question is, what are the 3 levels of job costing in Foundation? I'll give you all a minute to go ahead and plug your answers in. All right. Looks like we're good on that one. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and close that out. Okay. All right, like I mentioned, there's going to be a couple of other polling questions as we're motoring through this thing. So just like this one, I will give you a heads up when I'm ready to launch that. So going back to the main menu, what I like to do at this point is just sort of backtrack to sort of the beginning. So we've gone through some of the reports and the drill downs and the job costing. So we'll just kind of circle back to setting up a job, and then we can go through some entries against the job, and that'll give you all a pretty good idea of how those numbers ultimately get into job costing based on how those front-end transactions are coded. So on the menu, with these modules in bold here, day-to-day entry is done within the daily menu, setup is done within the maintenance menu under each module, reports you can access via the reports menu under each module. So the menu is very clean. There's no complexities. There's not 1,000 things in front of the user that they're never going to use. Now, the left side, just as a point of reference for everybody on the call here, we do have a favorites menu. So this is per user. Each person would be able to drag and drop reports, entry screens, anything that they're going to use more often than not, drag and drop, and the system would save those as favorites to shortcut to those particular screens. So really the first thing that somebody would do in our system, they land a job, they're ready to set it up. You get into maintenance under job costing, go to jobs, and this is where you would create a brand new job. Or for the sake of this example, I will show you one of my sample jobs. Now, you notice here that I use numbers for my jobs, also my vendors, my employees, and so on. It is alphanumeric, so that we just leave up to the user, letters, numbers, dots, dashes. Description, name the job whatever you want to name it. Below that, attach who you're working for, assign the project manager if you'd like, geographical area, could be cities, counties, states, that's up to the user, however you want to define the job locations. Project class, this is a way to set up different types of jobs. Super generic examples here. We could set these up for each client as needed. Somebody might do school jobs and hospitals and hotels, and just kind of making things up here. So it's a way to categorize jobs. And those are sorting and filtering options. So when a user wants to run a report for Dan's jobs, they can filter it. They'd only get Dan's jobs on that report. So these are all user-defined sorting and filtering options. Also a checkbox for certified payroll. So anybody that's working certified, prevailing wage, just flag it here. System will know to produce those reports automatically. So those certified reports can be submitted electronically via Foundation. They can be printed out as well. To the right of all that, contract amount, estimated cost. If there's retention, that percentage can be defined on the job, and the system would know what to hang on to. Always a struggle with the generic software of the world like QuickBooks. So for retention, as an example, if somebody creates a billing in our system and it hangs on to that 10%, it will keep it separate. And I'll give you all a peek here if I shortcut to my aging report. If you run an age receivable, for example, 30, 60, 90, retainage in its own column. So it doesn't require a separate entry on the part of the user, and it does not show those balances current due. They will hang out in that retainage column, keep it separate, doesn't age those balances until that retainage is billed. Once it's billed, let's say at the end of the job, it'll take it out of that retainage column, shove it over to 0 to 30, and then start to age it from that point. Now, going back to the job setup here, this 675, if a user wants to break that down into those different codes and create a detailed budget, we can come up to this Budgets tab here, click the Cost Codes button here on the left. That would bring up each client's customizable cost code list, and then just drag and drop or double click whatever codes are going to be included in this job's budget, which could be every one of them, could be a portion of them. Once we've added the codes and we click OK here, we can start to break down site work. Here's our labor budget. Here's our material budget. Go to the next cost code, demo, labor, material, so on and so on. Now, a user can create a budget manually like I'm doing here. We also have the ability to import. So anybody that's using custom Excel spreadsheets or actual estimating software, we can take those numbers, we can import them in, and save that user the time of creating these budgets manually, particularly handy with the detailed codes. If there's a ton of cost codes, saves a lot of time going through the import. All right, so the job is in. Now we are ready to make entries. I'm going to just bounce around to a couple different areas here. So we will get into, initially I'm going to start with payroll. Now for payroll, time cards can be entered directly into Foundation. So if a user is, we'll call it old school, they're getting pen and paper, time card sheets that come in from the field, they'd be able to enter, in this case, the employee, and then on the body of that time card indicate what job that employee worked on, cost code that labor, throw some hours in. Let's just say this employee is on that same job 8 hours a day the entire week. When I press enter, automatically the rest of the information defaults into that time card. So even for those that are doing manual entry for time cards, which there's plenty of companies out there that still do it that way, it is pretty efficient and just not a ton of keystrokes that each user has to go through. So the entry into payroll, pretty straightforward here. Now with that in mind, a lot of folks out there looking to go mobile for timekeeping. So for those that prefer to use a mobile app and get rid of the pen and paper timesheet methods, we do have what we call Foundation Mobile, which is our mobile app that we developed and we designed just like we did with our software. So this is developed in-house. This isn't a separate product that we white label. This is our mobile app that we created and designed. Now, it's more than just time cards. That's what the majority of our users utilize the mobile app for, is to capture labor. But you can see down the menu here, we've got a number of different options. So with time cards, users could clock in and out. So if each employee is sort of doing their own thing, they can clock in, clock out. The system would calculate those hours. Or they could enter what we call a single time card, which is pretty much data entry. The employee, the job, the cost code, plug those hours in, move on to the next one. So this could be each employee either clocking in and out or entering their own time, or this could be a supervisor entering time for their crew, as an example. So we just leave it up to our users and whatever makes most sense for them out in the field. It varies client by client. Now with the supervisor foreman in mind, we have what we call the grid time card. And this is handy for those that work cost codes and multiple cost codes, and you've got employees bouncing from code to code, meaning I could start a new time card for job number 1, tap next. I've got my default crew. We can make adjustments, remove employees, add employees. Once we've got that crew in order, tap next again, define whatever cost codes apply to today. And then when I start this time card, this can all be done on one screen. It's a grid style. Here are the employees on the left, the cost codes across the top, and that user can then start to break those hours down. Again, handy if these guys are bouncing code to code. You just wouldn't have to enter 2 hours for Rick, save it, 4 hours for Rick, save it, another 2 hours. This is all done on one screen with an approval process. So once the time cards are entered, that user can submit to, let's say, the project manager. Project manager can see all those hours. They can recode, they can make overrides, do what they need to do. So always this approval process to allow a second set of eyes on the time cards before they're officially fed into the software to populate the labor. So, like I said, there's a number of different options here if you want to just sort of take a peek at the menu. We won't get into all of that stuff today. That for anybody that does want to take a closer look, we can always circle back on like a one-on-one type thing. But just time permitting, we'll go ahead and move on from this. All right, so all those hours are fed into payroll. Payroll can be processed directly through the system, or payroll for construction can be utilized at this point. Now, regardless of that direction, clients would always have the ability to run their own payroll reports. So even if we're processing that 941, a client could still use it, even if they use payroll for construction. For certified payroll, there's a couple different options here. So electronic, we do have formats built into the system like EMARS, LCP Tracker. So a lot of these formats are predefined within Foundation. LCP Tracker is a very common one. We see a lot of it out there. So anybody that needs to submit certified payroll by way of LCP Tracker, there's no entry that's done on the website. That is an option for LCP Tracker. I get into their website and key all that information in. In our case, we kick a file out of our system that is their specific upload format, and then the user can upload it to the website and just bypass having to re-enter all that data into these third-party websites. Otherwise, if we go to the printed option, then you will see here that users have the ability to print these right out of the system on blank paper, as opposed to submitting them electronically, or maybe in addition to submitting electronically. So these forms, these reports are embedded in the system. We do have a lot of state-specific forms as well. So any state that has their own format, some states are really finicky about it. Others don't care. They'll just take that standard Department of Labor form. So we do have a bunch of these in here as well for those that do have their own formats. Okay, so that's a bit of a crash course on the payroll side of things. One last thing to point out there from a cost allocation standpoint, and I'm going to shortcut back to my dashboard here. We do allocate burden along with that labor. So taking into account workers' comp rates, unemployment rates, prevailing wage fringes, union fringes for any union contractors that are out there. We definitely cater to the union contractor. All of those burdens allocate to the penny, following the labor to the job and to the cost code. So that raw labor and all that burden that goes along with it, automatic allocation. All right, so I'm going to jump over to the cost commitment side of things, the purchasing, the subcontract. We'll go through this. I'll take you through that process, and then we're going to hop over to the billing side of things on the receivable once we get through this. So we'll jump into this, and like I mentioned before, this could be purchase orders and or subcontracts. So when a user comes in here to issue a commitment, they have the ability to indicate whether it's a PO in the way of a material order, or if it's subcontracted labor. Either way, those commitments are allocated to the job automatically by way of these agreements. And there's also two types that you could issue. Basic would be a dollar amount, and that's usually more applicable to a subcontract where it's a dollar value. There's no items, there's no quantities behind the scenes. It's just a contract, in this case for $65,000 to one of the subs, in this case Lewis Construction. So the basic type would be, again, a little bit more applicable to the subcontract agreement. Now the subcontract, the actual form, you could have multiple templates built into the system. You can see mine's a little 3-page contract, pretty basic, but these are customizable within the system. Another part of getting everything into one place here, rather than having to maintain these forms in Word or in Excel and having to fill them out manually, when a subcontract is issued into the system here, it knows where to place that vendor name, it knows where to put that job name. So the templates can be embedded in the system, and it would just fill in the blanks right on top of those forms. So the basic subcontract, $65,000. Now a detail agreement would be more related to, let me pull one up here, to a purchase order, meaning I've got this dollar amount in here of $1,400, but if I go to this item detail tab, that's where I can see it broken down into different items with quantities, unit cost. So this would be a master list of material pulling from our inventory module, and these items on a purchase order can be ordered job specific. You can see in this example, I've got a couple of job specific orders. Items can also be ordered for inventory stocking warehouse purposes. So important to know, mixing and matching on one PO is no problem. The purchase order, that can be customized just like we saw with the subcontract agreement. Same thing with any kind of verbiage, company logo, and that type of thing. So regardless of whether it's a PO or a subcontract, it's always committing the cost to that job. Once the vendor bills, a user would come into accounts payable, and they would be able to enter that invoice against that purchase order or that subcontract, which would expense to the job and reduce that commitment. So if I come in here to enter an invoice for Lewis Construction, and I enter this payable against PO number 122 or subcontract number 122, all of the data on that contract would feed into the payable, in this case, that full $65,000. Now, if that vendor, let's say they bill $35,000 out of the $65,000, then we would have $35,000 in cost against that job and that cost code. That $30,000 would remain out there as an outstanding balance on that PO or subcontract, and would show as an outstanding commitment, committed cost against that particular job and that particular cost code. All right, so time for the next polling question. Let me pop over to my menu here. Okay. All right. The question is out there, and you can see what type of cost do open purchase orders or subcontracts represent. So go ahead and take a minute to answer that one, and then we're going to hop over to the schedule of value billing. All right, I think still waiting on a couple more. I'll give you a minute. All right, looks like we're good to go. In a couple seconds here, I'm going to go ahead and close it. All right, so we've got one polling question left, and that'll be coming up here in a couple minutes. All right, so we've gone through setting up a job. We've got payroll, labor and burden costed out, POs issued, subcontracts issued, payables entered by way of those vendors, reducing those commitments. Now a user is ready to bill that job. So in accounts receivable, AIA's most widely used option here. This is that industry standard for % complete. So when we pull up, in this case, I've got my Chester Avenue Bridge job. Everything on this general tab is what goes to the front page to the G702. And then on the billing tab here, that's where you can see the schedule of value breakdown. And you notice here, I'm on application number 1. So I have not billed for this particular job. Now, when a user is ready to bill, they could either bill by the dollar amount, it'll calculate the percentage, or bill by the percentage, and it would back into those dollar values. Retainage, that can be defaulted from the job. In this case, it picks up 10%, populates automatically without the user having to go field by field in terms of all those different calculations. Now, once the billing values are entered, we can save it, and then we can print it. And just like we saw a little bit earlier with the certified payroll going on blank paper, same thing here. So your schedule of value billing, we've got the front page 702, we've got the continuation 703, and the really neat part about this from a, I guess you could say, an automation standpoint, integration standpoint, is users have the ability to post from here without having to do separate entries to get the billing onto the books. So if I go ahead and post this $92,000 pay application, one invoice has been created and posted in accounts receivable. So no separate entry to get that billing into the system, onto the aging, onto the books. It is out there immediately. That retention is held as well. So it would show separate on the aging like we saw before. Ledger's updated. Job revenue is updated. So we can now run a financial statement, run a job report, run the dashboard that we saw a little bit earlier, and all those numbers would show up in real time. So that, again, it's another example of a lot of these QuickBooks users, they create the billing in Excel, then enter an invoice into QuickBooks, then enter an invoice for retainage into QuickBooks, and then it shows that retainage is current due, then get into a spreadsheet, record the revenue within the spreadsheet against that job, then the billing gets adjusted. Now we've got to adjust the billing in Excel, then adjust in QuickBooks, then adjust on the spreadsheet. So this would take care of all of that through a single click, single point of entry, without having to jump through hoops to get those numbers across the board. Now, say it's a month later and the user's ready for the next billing, we pull that same job back up, and now we are on application number 2. That 92,000 has moved from completed over to previous, and now we can move forward with that next pay application. Okay, so we've covered the majority of the accounting. We have about at least 10 minutes left. We've got to hit that minimum time requirement to get you those CPE credits. So what I'm going to do at this point is pop over to more of our mobile apps, and just to kind of give you all a feel for what we have available on the mobile side of things, phones, tablets, and so on. So we looked at the field log. The field log would be the timekeeping and the daily management for that contract job, we'll call it. So this is usually either employees using it on their own or foreman supervisors that are entering time for their crew, like we saw earlier. Now we also have, and let me show you here, we have a mobile app for the service work as well. So those out there that do have a service division and they're managing work orders, this would be used on the part of the service tech that's out in the field. Maybe they have a tablet and somebody in the office dispatches that work order out to that technician. That technician has the ability to pop in here. They can tap into whatever work order they're working on at the time. They can see where they're supposed to be going. They can see what they're supposed to be doing in the way of, here's the work requested, here's why that client called us, here's notes and directions that dispatch can communicate, just so you know any kind of specifics once you get to that site. Now that technician has the ability to indicate what they repaired, how much time they spent on that site, whether they clock in and out or they just key those hours in. Material can be included on these work orders as well, even tracking inventory on a vehicle level. So if they pull 2 linear feet of 1/8-inch copper pipe out of their van or their truck, they can deplete the inventory by way of adding the material to the work order. And then, of course, the inventory reports would update as a result. Now, for those that bill on site, we do have the ability to review on-site billing with that customer. So that technician checks in with the customer before they leave. Here's what we did. Here's what we're going to bill you for labor. Here's what we're going to bill you for material. Here's your total with tax. And that service tech can then get the customer to sign off on it. So Jennifer signs off on the work order to verify that the work was completed as reviewed. And if Jennifer pays on site, then we're collecting payment amounts or payment details to apply against that billing. So if they don't pay on site, then the work order gets completed, sent back into the office, and then the billing comes out of Foundation. If this is done with payment on site, then we're creating the billing and that cash receipt against the billing at the same time, which feeds into Foundation to update the respective accounts. So really a couple different pieces here. We've got the field log mobile for the timekeeping for the construction work, and then we've got service mobile, which is, again, for the service work orders. And then I mentioned a bit earlier, we have ProjectHQ. ProjectHQ is our new project management system that we've been developing here for a couple years now. And this, like I'd mentioned, is really going to be the tool that replaces the existing project management module within the Foundation accounting program. So the thought behind ProjectHQ is, okay, I'm a project manager. I don't want to have to log into the accounting program to view my documents, to see my RFIs, to see my submittals. I don't want to, open up Foundation on a PC or a laptop. I mean, you can definitely use this on a PC and laptop, but tablets, that's where we see a lot of demand. So the project manager can log in. They can see, okay, a little snapshot of how many jobs do we have ongoing that I'm managing as the PM, how many documents are overdue that I need to address, or show me everything that's upcoming. Maybe there's some documents that are going to be overdue pretty soon here. So this little home screen, this will give that project manager just a quick snapshot, little visual on what they have out there, overdue document-wise and how many jobs they're managing. Now, if they tap into any of those specific jobs, then it drills down into a dashboard of that particular job. So they're able to see, all right, for that Hopkins Airport job, I've got a couple equipment logs, I've got some labor logs. Now with labor, this information would feed in from Foundation Mobile Timekeeping. So it'll go from Foundation Mobile, the timekeeping app, into ProjectHQ for anybody that uses ProjectHQ, and then in turn would feed directly over to Foundation to populate payroll. So these logs would be updated either by way of Foundation Mobile, or if a user wants to get in here and just update these logs manually, they can do that as well. That does include photo logs. So anybody out there that is taking photos of that job site, they can put notes on the photo. they can manage all that as well within this application. Okay, so for that job, I've got various tabs on the left here. Details. This is, what was the contract value for the job? What stage is that job in? When's the start date? When's the anticipated finish date? If I go to daily logs, that's where we're able to see all of those various logs. If I go to documents, the documents tab allows users to manage RFIs, manage submittals, and these are documents that can be sent out of the program. They can be received. So if somebody wants to make an entry when there's an RFI received, for example, that's no problem. It would populate the RFI logs, populate the submittal logs. Now, we also allow for user-defined documents. So any type of document that somebody wants to track that's not a standard RFI submittal, these we can manage as well. Just my examples that I have here, these would also be user-defined, just depending on what that exact contractor wants to track from a document standpoint. Change orders can be issued through here as well. So we've got requests for change if they'd like to submit a request, and then if that request is accepted, they can convert to a formal change order or just enter the change order out of the gate here without going through that request process. Either way is fine. And again, all of this data is feeding into Foundation. So as those change orders are entered, it's updating the contract value, updating that WIP schedule. So it's just feeding from this project management system, ProjectHQ, over to the Foundation accounting system. Commitments, those can be entered through here as well. Purchase orders, subcontracts, action items. This would allow the project manager to see what's floating around out there, follow up with Bill, approve the RFC. So this is just a little to-do list, if anything, just so they can see what needs to be addressed. Mailbox. This allows for email correspondence, and users could use the built-in ProjectHQ email, so a little email system that's built in, or use whatever app they're already using, like Microsoft Outlook. So that is what most do, at least, and any emails that are sent or received would feed in here, just so they don't have to go digging into their email app to find all that data. Lastly here, you can see we've got file storage with integration to Dropbox, Microsoft OneDrive, Google Drive. So these integrations, that's really what we found most effective. Everybody already has a Dropbox account or a OneDrive account, so we really sort of piggyback off of those and allow for file uploads and downloads directly into ProjectHQ by way of those document storage sites. Okay, and then you can see here the team for that job and budget for that job. All this information can be synced up with Foundation as well. All right, so not that this really concerns the CPAs of the world, considering this is more project management, really just to give you an idea of, hey, we do have some of these features out there. We've got these capabilities to help, and really these days, everybody's looking for the accounting and the project management working together. So it's a good opportunity for us. We really see a lot of potential within ProjectHQ, and the direct integration with Foundation, really does go a long way. All right, so with that in mind, let me go ahead and see if there's any questions out there. Oh, you know what? We forgot one of the polling questions, so let me hammer that out real quick here, and this will be an easy one, so I'm going to go ahead and launch it. Question here is, what's the construction industry standard format for % complete billing within Foundation? So that'll give you all a couple seconds to answer that one, and then I think we'll time things up pretty well here. All right, so I'm just going to leave this hanging out there for a minute. All right, looks like we're good. All right, excellent. All right, so that pretty much covers it. So if anybody does have questions, you can all feel free to call me. Again, my name is Patrick. My last name is Smith. There's a few Patricks floating around over here, but you can always contact me directly. So if anybody has questions, concerns, anybody out there that wants to hop on and just go through a little one-on-one, kind of more catered to you and any clients that are interested, that we can always get on the calendar, schedule a time, just do more of that one-on-one. So the webinar, it's going to be sent out. We've got it recorded here, so that's going to go out. You guys will get notification for the CPE credit as well. So just keep an eye out for emails with those details. And again, anybody that does want to chat a bit further, feel free to give me a call at your convenience, and we will go from there. All right, I appreciate everybody's time. I'm going to let you all get back to your day. Everybody enjoy their day. Keep an eye out for those emails. We will get those over to you as soon as we can. And once again, I thank you for your time. Take care.